It's been a long time since we heard about Zootopia getting a sequel. Talks and rumours of some kind have existed since 2016. That's 9 years ago. So to have it confirmed back in 2023 and only have a teaser released just a few days ago, this feels well and truly overdue. So of course I'm very eager to dive into this first snippet and see what I can puzzle out about the movie. Before we get into that though, I think it's important to set the scene. Why is this sequel even being made in the first place? Because as far as you'd be able to tell, Zootopia isn't exactly a super popular franchise within Disney discussions. At least not in the safe spaces online where you don't need to wash your eyes out with bleach. It just doesn't seem to get a lot of traction or respect. The thing is though, it actually is really popular. When it released back in March of 2016, it practically broke the box office. They hadn't had a popular film like that since Frozen in 2013. And that was still in the heyday of films being considered a financial success if they grossed even half of that amount. To gross $1 billion? There weren't that many films accomplishing such a great feat. For reference, Moana released 8 months later and only grossed 2/3 of that amount, and that film is hugely popular. It gets so much respect and love. I have a feeling I'm going to sound like a broken record of Ariana Grande endlessly saying how popular this movie was, but it's true. Even the reception backs this up. Critics gave it a 98% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes off of 298 reviews. The audience score is also high as well, with a 92% approval off of 100,000 reviews. It even went on to win the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature. In every possible metric you could measure, this film did astoundingly well. So the fact that we're well into Frozen's sequel era with a third and fourth movie on the way, and getting a Moana sequel before this, is wild. Don't get me wrong, I love those franchises too, but everywhere I look, Zootopia doesn't get enough love and doesn't get the acclaim it deserves. When Disney put forth the idea they could do a Zootopia-themed land in their American parks, people literally booed. Booed! Why, you may ask? I'll certainly never know or understand. I, for one, loved this movie. In fact, I think it's perhaps my favourite franchise from the Disney revival era. When it first came out, I'd been firmly in my teenage angst phase where I had no interest in going to see Disney movies, as they were clearly just made for kids. They obviously weren't the high art and sophisticated storytelling I was going to see. No, I'd rather watch an extremely long movie where a man sleeps inside a dead horse to keep himself warm than some lighthearted singing animal nonsense. Or at least, that's how I viewed it back then. Fortunately, my girlfriend had entered my life by this point and helped me throw away such ridiculous ideas as needing to appear grown up and bought us tickets to Zootopia. This completely changed my perspective on animated films and brought me back to the light. Suddenly I couldn't get enough, and it's no surprise why. The film is an absolute instant classic. It had the perfect mix of warmth, heart, humour and mystery, and apart from just being a really well-rounded story, proved to me that animated films and content are actually good, and that I shouldn't just exclude things that were made for kids from my periphery because I'm not the target audience. Any story can be good, no matter how complex. Kind of why I love this movie so much. It's more personal for me. I could go on about the actual story and why it's so great from a narrative point of view, but I've done that many times before, and it's not really what this video is about. I just felt like I had to build it up a little bit. I see too often how this film can be marginalized and forgotten, and I think that's a bunch of BS. This is a masterpiece. End of story. Apart from being awesome as a standalone, I also think this is the Disney narrative most conducive to a sequel. It's arguably the biggest world in Disney history, unlike anything we've seen before from the studio, with an established society and different conditions within it, whilst having charismatic characters that aren't bound down to a certain specific story point. Frozen is forever bound to the idea of having ice and cold playing a major role in the story, but there's only so many times you can have a cataclysmic disaster before it gets very old. Moana's whole shtick is about exploring the ocean and finding her people. With Zootopia, the storyline potential is endless because the story isn't really about the main characters. They're obviously relevant and they have their own personal character arcs, but it's more about the detective work and the investigations they undertake. That's what makes it so great. You can even build on the world, which it seems like they're doing in the sequel, where originally the city was just a mammalian society, but I guarantee before long there's going to be the introduction of reptilian species on a permanent basis. Personally, I've made videos trying to understand how this world actually functions many times, because parts of it make zero sense to me, so having more exploration and explanation would be a good thing to build into and make the franchise feel more alive. You don't even have to follow that same formula every time of introducing something new. The gimmick is that they're anthropomorphic animals, that's it. If you take the story of a girl going to a new city from a country town, becomes a cop where she's undermined and then teams up with a sly criminal who has a heartfelt past and they solve a crime together, I mean, it's basically Disney's Law and Order. And how long's that been running? It boggles the mind that with such room for storytelling that this is the franchise they've neglected. Never mind, enough about that. It's here now and I'm very happy for that. Better late than never and all that jazz. I suppose we'd better actually get into the new information we have about this movie. I'll be honest, it's not much to go on, but if you've watched me for any amount of time, and honestly if you're still here in this video, you'll know I have the tendency to overthink and try to extract any tiny detail I can from the flimsiest of sources. So I'll do my best. I think we'll just go through what's appearing on screen and stated by Disney, then I'll dive into my personal opinion on where the story's headed. The first piece of info we have is the official blurb for the movie, underneath the teaser trailer. It reads, "In Walt Disney Animated Studios' Zootopia 2, detectives Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde find themselves on the twisting trail of a mysterious reptile who arrives in Zootopia and turns the mammal metropolis upside down. To crack the case, Judy and Nick must go undercover to unexpected new parts of town where their growing partnership is tested like never before." Next up, we have the official teaser. You'll have to forgive me as this teaser isn't exactly the norm. It doesn't really have a strong narrative flow, but instead quite literally lives up to the names and teases you as to what to expect from the movie. In short, my narration isn't going to make that much sense, but it's part of the job, so I best crack on with it. The first shot has 3 hamsters dressed all in black with futuristic visor sunglasses, playing a tune on an electric keyboard. I'm pretty sure this is meant to be a 90s reference, but it's hard to tell since that was mainly my early childhood and I wasn't super knowledgeable about all the fashion and pop culture trends. Then the next segment's basically just a countdown to the actual teaser with some cool music courtesy of the hamsters. We then have Judy and Nick appear with a huge blue snake dropping on top of them. He looks pretty pleased with himself and considerably friendly. Nick looks pretty worried whilst Judy just seems confused. The snake, who we know is Gary from the information we got at last year's D23, whisks them away whilst they're being chased by rhino police officers. Then it seems Nick and Judy are leading the charge, carrying Gary away from an ever-increasing horde of police. The scene then changes to underwater, which I can assume symbolises the swamp that was also in the preview at D23, where a beaver helps direct Nick and Judy to safety away from, once again, the police. Although cleverly, this time they're actually hippos, considering they'd be far more adept in water terrain. Nick and Judy then pop out of an ice hole, dragging a frozen Gary alongside them, whilst they're being followed this time by Arctic dogs of some kind, I can only assume wolves or huskies, pulling a sled led by a wild boar. Again, all of these animals are police officers. I'm sure you're well aware of this, but I need to be thorough. Gary's then swinging Nick and Judy through what appears to be a high mountain terrain away from more officers until they all collide and land in the desert. They seem cornered until Judy manages to use an air horn and changes the scenery once again to a rave? Imagine having that kind of power. I know, I realise she doesn't, and it's just for cinematic effect, but the thought of it is quite funny. The trio then manage to sneak away through a pink cloud, only to be confronted by a mysterious hooded figure that's making its way towards them. Gary looks very afraid. They also appear to be on a rooftop in the middle of the CBD, so it could be the centre of Zootopia? To finish off the teaser, we have a quick flash forward through various characters that I presume will appear in the film. Some we know, but some also look new. The characters we see include Mr. Big, aka the Godfather, Clawhauser, Giselle and her tigers, Flash, the naturalist yoga guy, a ripped horse that's definitely obsessed with the patriarchy, a redneck walrus, Bellwether, the beaver we saw earlier helping Nick and Judy, who I think is named Nibbles, a smarmy looking lynx, a concerned grizzly bear police officer, an anteater that definitely looks like he's involved with some shady business, some long-tailed goat that I had to Google what it could possibly be, possibly a long-tailed goral. To be honest, he doesn't even look like he knows what he is. The security/boss polar bear that works for Mr. Big, Judy's parents, some metro zebras, that wild hog that was chasing Nick, Judy and Gary, Duke Weaselton, who seems to have embraced his musical role from Zootopia Plus, Frou Frou, Chief Bogo, an elephant seal, a quokka who according to Wikipedia is called Dr. Fuzzby and is Nick and Judy's therapist. Can't wait to unpack that one. An armadillo, the panda news anchor. A hippo police officer that I'm sure we saw in the first movie. I would have said the next guys are hamsters, but I'm not sure if they have long tails. Maybe gerbils? But they have different tails too. I have no idea what they are, but they look to have an American prep vibe to them. Then we have what seems to be Lederhosen wearing mountain goats, and I'm immediately reminded of Hoodwinked. Phoenix dressed in a rabbit onesie with a carrot dummy. And I can only imagine what a field day shippers and furry enthusiasts are going to have with this reveal. I think it's obvious, but just in case it isn't, he's dressed up as a fox-bunny hybrid, aka the donkey dragon creepy kids anomaly. Hey, I enjoy the possibility of romance between Judy and Nick. I don't want to think too hard about that, alright? Then there's a porcupine that looks extremely judgmental and overconfident in his intellect, a sunburnt naked mole rat, I almost said naked roll mat, and those are two things I never thought I'd say. Next is a cowboy iguana, the mysterious hooded villain who everyone online thinks is Death from Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. I mean, they're not wrong, it does look like him, so we'll see how it differs, before we finish off with a hippie-looking moose blowing fire and revealing the title Zootopia 2. Well, more specifically, just Zootopia. Gary comes in and makes it all happen. We end with the release window of November 2025 and the hamsters walking off the keyboard. So that's all the information we really have at the moment. Like I mentioned briefly, D23 last year gave us a lot more details, such as the fact that reptiles have a shady past with Zootopia, so you can only imagine the negative reception a snake's going to have entering the city. This leads me to my best guess based on the vague 1-minute teaser and the 2-sentence description. I think the film starts off with the sighting of a reptile, namely a snake, and Judy and Nick are sent to investigate. This is where the swamp scene with Nibbles that was previewed with D23 comes into play, as they haven't seemed to actually find Gary yet. They subsequently find him, but then witness to some crime by the mysterious hooded figure that's then blamed upon Gary. And assuming they're told by Gary his version of events, they head on a wild goose chase to 1, confront and convict the hooded villain, whilst also escaping the police force sent out to capture Gary, considering they would think he's the guilty party. I would imagine then hijinks ensue. I'm sure Mr. Big probably helps Nick and Judy out, but then again, being a rodent, he may be particularly unhappy about assisting a reptile. In essence, it would be a witness protection type of case. Meanwhile, learning that Nick and Judy have a partner therapist, I would imagine they have some sort of internal conflict where they both differ on how to handle cases they're assigned and the methods they use. The therapist would be there to kind of assist them through that. There seems to be over 20 new characters being introduced into this movie, which is just insane to think about, along with keeping everybody else relevant, so that should be fun. I hope they can do it justice because that's a lot to keep up with. Obviously, the majority aren't exactly going to have a pivotal role, but still, it's a lot. Despite that though, I'm really excited for the movie. It really seems as though I'm going to be getting everything I kind of wished for in the sequel. More world building and new areas to explore, a fun mystery, more development for Nick and Judy. What's not to like? The cherry on top is they're kind of sticking with the marketing like they did for the first movie. The initial teaser for Zootopia pretty much just explained the concept of what Zootopia would feature, aka anthropomorphic animals that exist in a mammalian utopia. This actually gives us less than that, and whilst it makes my job somewhat difficult, I'm still happy about it. I love going into the movies and not knowing a whole lot. The experience is just much more fun that way, especially when it's a franchise I already adore. I really hope this movie does well. All metrics say that it will, with how sequels have been performing in general, but I desperately just want those people who have downplayed Zootopia's popularity to be truly humbled once and for all. I have a feeling that maybe people think there's some shame attached to liking this movie or something. Maybe they think if you like the talking animals or something, it makes you a furry. I don't know. It's not that deep.
Look, it's just monkeys singing songs, mate. Don't think too hard about it.
Furries enjoy it for sure, but far more people that are not furries just like cute animals, like myself. Don't get caught up worrying about what other people think. Just enjoy the funny, cute animals. With all that being said though, these have just been my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What do you think of the teaser for Zootopia 2? Do you like it? Hate it? I have actually seen some people say it's underwhelming. I'm sure those people would have complained too if it had been more in-depth, but you just can't win on the internet, can you? What do you hope to see in the sequel? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.